Hello, my wannabe entrepreneurs. Welcome to another wannabe entrepreneur podcast. My name is Tiago, and oh boy, do I have a full, eventful episode for you. You see, today is Thursday night, and it's the end of one of the biggest tech conferences in Europe and maybe even the world. Its name is Web Summit. You probably already heard of it. If you didn't, just go and search it on LinkedIn or Twitter or Google and see that there's a lot of people there. Actually, there was some controversial around Web Summit this year because the founder said some things about the war that is going on in Israel. So a lot of companies, big tech companies like Google and Facebook, they dropped out. But in the end, well, the CEO resigned, but there was a lot of people there. And as last year, if you remember last year, I also had a ticket for it, free ticket, provided by my friend Sven. Thank you, Sven. And this time we did things properly. I was not the young Web Summit virgin. I already knew what I was going for and I really prepared. So I want to speak about that in today's episode. Great tips and things that I've learned for you to use as well if you go with your indie company to a sponsored event or conference. And yeah, that will be basically the topic of today's episode. So without any further ado, let's get into it. Yeah, so as you know, we just came from Podfest Berlin not too long ago, which was the conference or the podcast festival in Berlin. And if you haven't heard it already, just go back to the episode where I speak about it. I think it's something around how to sponsor a conference. We have learned a lot of things, and I came with all the energy needed for another very extroverted event, which is the Web Summit. Just to give you some stats, at least last year, I know there was around 70,000 people in the Web Summit. So it's like massive. Imagine like a lot of big pavilions filled packed with people, mostly tech people, but really from all different areas. And it's kind of split it into multiple things. There's a lot of things happening at the same time. And if there's one word that describes the Web Summit, is overwhelming. Everyone, especially people that are coming from the first time, they always say the same. It's a very overwhelming event, and it is. So basically, you have an app that connects you with everyone in the Web Summit. You can DM people and you can see whatever is going on, which is really cool. And I'll tell you more about the app in an instance. But yeah, there's a bunch of talks going on. I think there was like 5 different pavilions, each pavilion 2 stages, and then there was one main stage, and there's talks basically every hour or every half an hour. There's a talk going on. So that's one thing. Then there's like booths, like multiple companies that come with their booth. There's Alpha booth, which is like, it's weird word to say, booth, isn't it? Okay, anyways, yeah, there's the Alpha tickets, which is something that we also kind of thought on acquiring. It costs around 1,500 euros, and you get your own booth for one day, and you also get access to some VIP lounges and stuff. So basically, you are there, and people just pass by you. You have a very small, table, and you get to share about your company. And then there's the beta tickets, which is another level of startups. You pay more, but instead of only having one day, you are there for the 3 days. And it's normally alphas are, those projects that are still pre-revenue. They're making no money. A lot of them are quite recent. And then betas are already making money. And then you have, the really sponsored booths, from big companies like, I don't know, Google and Amazon and whatever, all around. And those are like proper booths with 3 or 4 employees there, and they give you the goodie bags and everything. So that's basically it in a nutshell. Of course, the US also have the food and a bunch of things going on. Last year, what I did was going around to these alpha companies and just chatting with everyone, try to understand what was going on. I also attended some talks last year. This year, I didn't attend any talk because mostly the talks suck. I have to be honest. They are very much this kind of clickbaity talks. a lot about AI, but in the end, like they don't say much. They're just there to attract, I guess, people in the beginning. But I don't know. For me, they are not very interesting. Also, the event, the rooms, the stages, they're in open, like open space, so they're not in an individual room, so it's really hard to hear and really hard to get a place to sit. Yeah, it's really not good for talk. So what we did this time was different. This time I went to the app, and you can actually search people by topic. So I searched, by podcasting. I just searched podcast, podcasting, radio, everything, and I DM'd everyone. The classic spammy approach to everyone, or the classic cold emailing approach, I guess. To everyone, I sent a message saying, "Hey, my name is Tiago. I am the founder of PodSqueeze, which is a tool that helps you repurpose your content. Podcasters repurpose their content, and I'm wondering if you have 5 minutes to chat. I want to, introduce you to the tool, or I want to know more about your project." And surprisingly, a lot of people got back to me, and I end up having back-to-back talks. So it was really hard, also because the app kind of sucks. At some point, it gets super slow and it doesn't work super well. But I was able to send, I don't know, maybe 50, 60 messages. And from those, I think I got maybe 10 talks, or maybe even a little bit more. And it's not easy to schedule them, right? Because again, it's such a huge event. Just for you to understand, one time I was trying to meet up with someone, and she said, I'm here in the food court next to the Pai Thai food truck." And I was there, and I was like, "Okay, I'm here in front of the Pai Thai food truck." And she's like, "Okay, I'm wearing a brown jacket." And I was basically going around and looking at the name tags, because everyone carries like a name tag, and trying to say, "No, that's not this person, not this person." And then it was really frustrating because we couldn't see each other. And then I realized that there are multiple Pad Thais, whatever, food trucks around. So I was in the wrong place. So for me, it was really crucial to find a nice, quiet, quote unquote, quiet area. Nothing is really quiet, but a nice area where I could just tell people, "Okay, I'm here, come and meet me," and you can sit down and have a chat. So first day, I just scouted the whole, event, and I found one really cool place. It was next to the Ukrainian booth. There were some tables, and I used this every time. So when I was chatting with people, they would be like, "Okay, what time do you want to do it?" Or I would suggest a time. They would say yes, and I'll say, "Okay, let's meet in the seating area in the pavilion one by the Ukrainian booth." And that worked really well. Most people would immediately go there and find me, and we could just sit down and have a chat. And yeah, so I also used, besides using the app on the Web Summit app, I also used my own calendar app, and I had like all the calendar, everything scheduled. So every time someone would say yes, I would go there and schedule the talks. And I'm actually going to open my calendar right now. Beep boop. This is me trying to mimic the sounds of me touching the phone. Toot. Opening calendar. Yeah, I just want to see like because I think it would be cool to tell you a little bit what happened and some interesting insights I took from these talks. Of course, I don't want to bore you too much. There's really cool things going on. So one thing that I did to prepare myself for this conference was to create a bunch of cards. These name cards, like contact cards. With my email, and we also had a little discount for PodSqueeze. I think I was the only one actually. I only got one other card from another person, but I think cards are the best. Are really the best to just exchange super fast. You exchange that with people, and I'll tell you how I used it and how cards really made a dent, and it was really cool. Before actually the conference, by the way, there's a lot of things going on around the Web Summit. So a lot of networking events. Last year this happened too, and this year I got invited to a pre-networking party. So in this amazing, beautiful apartment in Lisbon with the most fantastic view over the river and the city, and I got to meet a lot of cool people there. So you just go there, and I have to say, like, these events are a bit, I don't know, so they're a bit awkward, at least for me. And I have to say, and now to get a little bit more real and into mental health, I am, for most people, they would look at me and see me as an extrovert, confident person. But I don't see myself that way. I also think that I have kind of not diagnosed anxiety, and quite often I blush. I blush a lot. It's super weird and super awkward. I'm not also a very pale person, so it's weird that for me, a Portuguese kind of tanned, you know, kind of skin blushes so much, and it's also very. I was actually recently searching for it and trying to understand what's going on, because it's weird. Like in the most random situations, sometimes I'm like with friends or even with people that I'm not super comfortable, and if there's a topic or if I'm put it on spot, I just blush, and that's the only thing. But then I kind of get sweaty, and I don't want to get too much into details, but I don't know. It's something that I had this all my life. And again, I think it's somehow connected with some kind of anxiety or some phobia. I don't really know. I don't control it. One thing that definitely helps is, drink a beer or something. A little bit of alcohol makes me much more loose and much more chill. And then once I get in the momentum, once I get more confident, this kind of goes away. But especially in the beginning, when I'm meeting people or when I'm I don't know, someone approached me, someone that I've met for a long time in like, I don't know, I do this. It's super weird. And if you do the same, if you have the same situation, yeah, just DM me on Twitter at WBTiago, because I would love to know. I would love to know if it's only me or if it's other people with this, whatever problem. I don't know if it's a problem. I try to ignore it. I mean, there's nothing much I can do. I think it must be, I don't know, I feel that it must be awkward. At least I see myself as a little bit awkward when I see this, but what is also really awkward for me is this first interaction. In these networking events, normally people split into groups and you need to approach them. And I always feel, especially if I'm alone, if I'm going with João or my co-founder or a friend, whatever, it's easier. Again, maybe it goes back to the biology of things and feeling that I'm not alone and in danger or whatever. But when yeah, approaching people and talking and breaking the ice is always super awkward. And I tend to, in these networking events, to be a little bit isolated unless someone approaches me. So fortunately, in this last event, so the pre-networking party, we did kind of an introduction, which is, I know, a bit awkward to introduce yourself, but it really opens up the conversation. It's much easier than for people to approach you. So a lot of people approached. João was also there, and I gave my cards, and the pre-networking party was really cool. And yeah, so I was going to tell you about some of the interactions I had. I did go to one or two. I told you that I didn't go to many talks. I did go to one that was about podcasting. I didn't listen to it, but I waited for the speakers to leave. And when they left, I would just say like, "Hey, I liked your talk. Here is my card. I do this." Funny enough, this guy works in the UK, and he actually produced the podcast of Dua Lipa. Yeah, Dua Lipa, the pop star. And I was like, hey, do you have like her contact? Like, yeah, I chat with her all the time. I don't know if he was bullshitting me or not, but it was really cool, to be basically in contact with someone that, has the contact of Dua Lipa, which is a megastar. But yeah, so that was it. And then I had a bunch of chats with people. And in general, the chats were either with podcasters or people with that like apps or things around it. With podcasters, I would just introduce the tool. I would just say that I have this tool. We can do this, and I would just see as well. Like I would ask them about their podcast, what was their struggles, and I would just like write down everything. Actually, one thing that I started doing from day two was that after each interaction, I would just record a voice memo so that I wouldn't remember. I would remember everything, and then when I would get home, I would re-listen to everything and write down some ideas. But yeah, it was good because I got to understand what people really, what are the struggles of a lot of podcasters. I understood that some of them already use our competitor products or other products, and a lot of them were excited to try PodSqueeze. And in the end, I just always gave them a card. Let's see, you never know. They say that I'm interested, but then they might forget about it, whatever. but in general was good to understand what was the struggles, and also just to chat. I mean, I like chatting. I like to have good conversations. As you can see here in the podcast, I had a lot of interviews. So in general, when it's a topic that I'm interested in, I would just hang out and learn more about their podcasts, about their lives. And that's, by the way, what networking is about. Networking is not really about you thinking, okay, I want to sell you something. It's more like having a nice conversation and trying to help them. I would do this a lot. I would listen to them and say, okay, have you tried this? Have you tried that? Let me introduce you to this person. And I think that's the main goal as well. I want to help others because I'm passionate about podcasting and entrepreneurship. So one thing that I realized that was really an interesting thing to find is that a lot of people are using Spotify for podcasters as their host. So they use this to publish their episodes. And I would ask them like, okay, but besides Spotify, where is your podcast? And I'd be like, it's only Spotify and YouTube. But I didn't understand this because I thought that Anchor, which now is Spotify for podcasters, would distribute your episodes through iTunes, Google Podcasters, you name it, all the streaming platforms. So one thing that I've learned was actually recently Spotify is trying to create, or someone said it, and I really like this expression, YouTubeify the podcasting industry. So putting everything in only one platform. And apparently a lot of people, they don't know this, and they end up only distributing their podcasts on Spotify. So yeah, that was cool to learn this. And then I had some other interactions with people that are in the industry for a long time. I met the organizer of the podcast festival in Italy. He is in the industry for, I think, 15 years, and we made some good interaction. And in the end, we decided that we would like give them, he has like a community of more than 300 podcasters, and give him a discount for Pod Squeeze. I don't know if in the end we'll use it or not, or if it will go to something, but I also learned a lot from him. This thing with the podcasting, Spotify podcasting that I just told you, he was the one telling me. And I realized that, yeah, maybe I just want to have another chat with him because there's a lot of things that I can learn. And in the end, there's also, I wanted to tell you two situations, two or three funny situations. The one of Dua Lipa I already told you. The other one was like a benefit of having a card. So one time I was just walking around and I saw someone with a radio, like a portable recorder, and she was working for a radio, a Portuguese radio. So I just gave her the card. I just said like, hey, sorry to interrupt. Let me just give you this card. Is about my app that helps podcasters and radio, and I'm just curious to know if this could help radios like yours to repurpose the content. So here it is. And she was like, oh, okay, thank you so much. She got the card, and she said like, by the way, I can just interview you at the spot because I'm interviewing other makers here. I was like, sure. And she just like hit record, and we did a quick interview about Pod Squeeze. It is funny because it was in Portuguese, obviously, and it's so much harder for me to first of all to speak in Portuguese, and to pitch my startup in Portuguese. It's much harder because there's a lot of expressions that I only know in English, so I cannot say them in Portuguese. So it was good actually for me to train and to pitch the ideas in Portuguese because, by the way, tomorrow or on Saturday, we are going to be the sponsors of a podcast festival here in Portugal. So yeah, that's, if I didn't have the card, the other possibility that a lot of people were using and really works is for you to share your QR code for your LinkedIn profile. So if you have the LinkedIn app, you can just click on search and then click on the QR code, and it also works really well because people can just scan it and immediately get connected to you. But it would be really awkward to just approach someone out of the blue and say like, hey, scan my code. They'll be like, what the fuck? No. So just by giving the card, it's so much better, and it's much easier to approach people like this. Another situation where the card was really useful was, again, I was just walking around and I saw someone approaching an investor. It's kind of a known investor here in Portugal. He also has a podcast, by the way. But I didn't recognize them. But this person said like, "Hey, you are Tosha. You are an investor." And they were talking for a bit, and I was like, stalking them. I was like, they were moving left and they were moving right, and I was going because I wanted to approach him. And then I just did it. I was like, "Hey, Tosha, by the way, my name is Tiago. I don't want to interrupt too much. Here's my card. I do this. I know that you have a podcast." And just getting the card, it's so much easier to make an introduction. And then he immediately said like, hey, send this to this email, to my assistant. So we just did this connection. So I really think that the card is something that it's easy, it's fun, people put it in their pockets, and then eventually, hopefully, they will just maybe take a picture of it. On when they get home, they have this, and they can even remember me. So that's something that I'll definitely do in the future, and it worked. And also, when my card, our card, has, as I think I told you, a discount. So it also helps because you can say, and by the way, besides having my contacts, you also have a little discount, and also like explains what our product is. So yeah, that's basically mostly it. Again, a lot of talks, a lot of conversations with really interesting people from all over the world. And yeah, at some point I met some two guys, and I was like, hey, where are you from? Where are you coming from? And they said like Israel. I was like, oh. And then, how to interact is because or when interacting with people that coming from countries that are at war, it's always a bit awkward because you never know like what should you say. Like, I'm sorry for what's happening. So I just said like, oh, things are not good there, and it's like, yeah, not good. Okay, and then move on, and then we keep talking. uh, and yeah, so those were basically the things that happened. I also spoke about this podcast with Sam. I realized that even though the number of listeners are kind of going down a little bit, I guess because I haven't been so punctual with my episodes, and I'm sorry for that. But I realized that we do have a lot of listeners here. We are a really nice community, so I really appreciate you for listening to the Wannabe Entrepreneur podcast and being part of my journey. That's really, really cool. Thank you so much, and hopefully we are learning together, because yeah, a lot of people, they have like 30 downloads or 30 downloads per episode, and the fact that we have around like 250 downloads per episode, like there's an audience, and we are quite big. That's really, really cool, really, really fun. And if you want to meet me and other makers like yourself, and at the same time sponsor or like support this podcast, you can join the community. We have Indie Makers community on Slack. It's a private community, and it costs $10 per month. And we have events, and you can get other makers, and it's quite active community. It's super fun, so you can join us there. And again, there will be a really cool interview coming up soon with Andrew Gazdecki. He is the founder of Acquire.com. So we're all going to talk about selling software as a service and how that works. And there's a lot of things that I've learned in that interview that I think you will really enjoy. And yeah, before I leave, let me just ask you to share this episodes with your indie maker friends. Let's keep it going, keep it growing. And there's a lot of other episodes. I have more than 300 episodes. So if you are just started listening recently, just go to wannabe-entrepreneur.com and click on episodes, and you can filter by interviews if you are into that. And there's like really cool chats I had with other makers. I've learned so much from those. So you can just go there and check the interviews, or my journey, because I started this in no when I started this, I had like nothing and no project, making no money. I just a lot of anxiety because I left my job. So yeah, now I get to you get to see the whole journey. Yeah, and that's it. Thank you so much. And this was another Wannabe Entrepreneur. See you next week. Oh, if you are in Portugal, by the way, if you are Portuguese, join us Saturday. We'll have free beer, and in the festival Podes, Podes.pt. It's going to be really fun, and yeah, we'll be there. Bye.